just leave it that.
Fantastic, thank you.
No worries.
Go ahead and sort all this out here. Very good. You want to sit there, Karen?
It's not for me?
It is.
Oh, go ahead. There's 2 more cookies left. Oh, look at that. There we go. Mike's all over the place.
So as soon as you put it in your mouth, I'll ask you a question.
not yet.
That's good. That's good.
Same as the dentist says, every time they put that thing in your mouth, they ask you a question, right?
That's right. That's how it works.
All right.
Anyway, I want to thank you for being here and your patience. And I know we ran a little late tonight, and apologize for that, but that's the name of the game, I guess, once in a while. And if you would, just introduce yourselves and your firm real quick to us, and we'll start the questioning.
I'm Vose. I'm the founding partner of the Vose Law Firm.
I'm Wade Vose. I'm the managing partner of the Vose Law Firm.
And I'm Karen Consalo. I'm an attorney with the Vose Law Firm.
Is that the microphone on? Press the button there. Were you on?
Me?
Yeah, press it.
Testing.
There you go.
All right.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, great. And we left off with Mr. Rolston. We're going right on down the line and just going around, and we're going to allow around 40, 45 minutes at the most, and for the question, and then the interview, and then that'll be it.
Fantastic.
Rick, we left off. I'm first.
So are we just going around and asking questions? Or?
Yeah, we're going to go around and ask questions, yes. And,
Fantastic.
And answer however you want to, whoever that you want to answer the
Sure.
questions, that's fine.
So my question is, you're here because we wanted to look for another firm or review the firm we have. So the question would be institutional knowledge, where, pluses and minuses of your firm coming in, what do we lose by not continuing, and what do we gain with your firm in that regard?
Sure.
Over the loss of institutional knowledge.
We go ahead and tell you a little bit about that. We've done a lot of transitions from cities where we've had one city attorney going out and us coming in. There's always going to be a little bit of catching up to do when any new city attorney comes in. We've always had very good experience in, sorry, I get a lot of feedback there. We've always had very good experience in working with the outgoing city attorneys to be able to get up to date on everything that's going on. Based on that experience and coming in all of the 11 cities that Becky and I have served the city attorney for, we have learned the right questions to ask. Who do we need to watch out for? Who's going to, give us this problem? Who's going to give us that problem? And not just in the city itself, but among the players in the community and so on, try to collect that information. So always there's going to be a little bit of learning that you have in getting at that. But we've had very good experience with that. Beck, you want to grab on that?
I just recently took over as city attorney for Anna Maria last April, and that was a situation, I think it was really the first situation in my experience where the outgoing city attorney was not cooperative, which is highly, highly unusual. But that did not cause a problem at all, because I was able to meet with the mayor and the city commissioners and the city staff, sit down, get up to speed on everything. And frankly, you may think that your city is unique, but there are so many similar dynamics in various cities that we can key into it very quickly. I've been representing cities for the last 42 years, and I almost never miss a beat when I take over a city, whether or not, there's cooperation from the previous city attorneys. And I do know your current city attorney, he's a great guy, so I wouldn't anticipate any kind of a problem with that.
I would say, too, you get quite a bit of diversity. You get both, as Becky said, over 40 years of experience in government law. You get a variety of attorneys who have worked both for local government and have represented constituents before local government. So you get attorneys who understand both what it's like to work in-house in a government setting, what it's like to represent a government as their counsel, their outside counsel, and very importantly, what it's like to be a citizen trying to come before a board. You have that sympathy, which I think is great. And you have ample experience. Everyone before you has over a decade, every attorney at the firm has over a decade of experience in working on local government law, and I think you would be very well served with the Vose Law Firm.
Okay, thank you. One of my questions I was going to ask you already answered. So, but given the cost of the senior attorney services versus the paralegals and associates, how are you going to balance controlling the cost for the city and with the quality of your legal advice to us?
Sure. We've never run into a situation where our costs have overrun where those cities' needs have to be. I think we indicated that in our fee proposal, that we're always very open to working with the city to making that happen. In appropriate circumstances where it's appropriate to provide the best service to the city, obviously we're going to have paralegals work on those things that aren't attorney work. Oftentimes, however, particularly in working with cities, you are going to want to have an experienced attorney working with staff, talking with the members of the City Commission, obviously being at the City Commission meetings, to be able to provide that to you. So we always try to be very conscious in doing that. In our fee proposal, if you all took a look at it, we gave you all a bunch of different options, gave you 4 different options there. One of them, the first one, was kind of modeled on your existing model. It's not an option we tend to give out of the box to cities because we've never really understood the logic of we'll charge you for this many hours whether we do that work or not, and then we'll tack on some more there. So that's tended not to be one, but we wanted to give you an apples-to-apples comparison, so we gave you something of that similar structure. But in addition to that, and that pure hourly rate, so that you can see what we're looking at with regard to workload and potentially recalibrate that later on. What we found oftentimes, though, with a number of cities we represent, is it is more cost-effective for cities to go on a fixed fee. One of the fixed fee options that we have here, either a complete fixed fee, where you've got everything handled, including litigation, or the one that focuses on handling all governmental services except for litigation. And what we see in that instance, in those instances, particularly in the one that is the all-encompassing, including litigation, is it helps all the more align interests. You see what I'm saying? At that point, there's no concern where anybody is picking up the phone and, that someone would have a worry that, oh, well, staff is calling the attorney too much, or this or that or the other thing. We want staff to call us. We want each of you to call us. We want to be able to be in the loop on things as they're developing early. So we try to set up those options to be able to deal with that and be able to provide the best service and not have to charge you more to provide you absolutely the best service. And I know Beck's got a lot of examples, particularly in Deltona, where you're in the loop on everything from the instigation of absolutely anything.
Right, in the city of Deltona, they pay us one fee every month, and it covers absolutely everything, including litigation. And I encourage staff people, city commissioners, everybody to check at the very beginning of the process on virtually every project they do to get us involved. And honestly, that saves us time. It is so much easier to nip something in the bud if they're heading off a little bit in the wrong direction. And it saves them time. It just works out better for everybody. But if somebody has to worry, oh my gosh, if I call them up, the clock starts ticking and they're going to be billing us, then I think that causes, at least mentally, in some people's minds, I better not call. I think I know how to do this. I don't really need the lawyer involved. And then they get pretty far down the line and oops, they made a mistake. And it can become disastrous pretty quickly. To me, that makes all the sense in the world. And to have, I have seen situations where no matter how much you are advocating for the city. If litigation is filed, there's some niggling doubts in some people's mind. Did they set this up so that they can make more money? Okay? And that's a bad situation to have. I really like to be all in for my cities. You know, if the city is sued, I want to be there right at the beginning. I want to make sure that it gets handled correctly. I want to put on a very, very strong defense. I will give you a little example. When I became city attorney for Deltona, there was a lot of litigation against the city. And there was one case in particular that had been going on for 7 years. And I looked at the case file. There were boxes and boxes and boxes of files on this case. And the previous city attorneys had been paid on an hourly rate. They had taken depositions, and then things kind of stalled. They had filed motions, and then things kind of got installed. Well, Wade and I sat down in our library, and we put all these boxes on the table. We went through everything, and we figured out that this was an inverse condemnation case where back, to tell you how long ago this was during the 3 hurricanes when they came through. 2004. Yeah, in 2004. The city of Deltona was having flooding problems. And in order to take care of that problem, they realigned the levees, and they intentionally flooded some property to the south of the city. It was not occupied property, but they did it intentionally, and it was in order to save thousands of homes. And the people who owned that property sued in inverse condemnation. It had since dried out and everything, but we determined that, in fact, they had a good cause of action against the city. We figured out a reasonable, they were asking for well over $1 million. We thought that because it did dry out and there wasn't anything going on there anyway, we recommended to the City Commission make an offer of judgment of $50,000. The City Commission thought that was a good idea. We made the offer of judgment. The other side did not respond. Okay, so we immediately filed a notice for trial. We went ahead, and luckily up in Volusia County you could get a trial very quickly. I tried the case. We won. It was 0 verdict. We went back and filed a motion for attorney's fees because of the offer of judgment. And the other side, in a mediation of the attorney's fees, agreed to pay the city $100,000 in fees. After that, we settled out every other case that was on the books up there. You know, I told them, you want to stand in line, do this again? Since then, the city basically hasn't been sued. I get notified by people that, well, we think you did us wrong, and I tell them the story, and, I tell them who to call, the attorney on the other side, who's a well-known eminent domain lawyer in Orange County. See if you really want to sue us. So I think that if you take a really aggressive approach initially on lawsuits, you can stop future litigation. If you're doing it on an hourly rate, you should still do that. But some people might think that you're running up the bill by going to trial on something where you could possibly settle it. But almost always, a really good defense is just worth everything in the world as far as keeping future litigation down. So
I would just add to what was already said. The tiered structure, I think, works very well for Mount Dora to decide how they want to structure their fees, but also the experience you have before you. You're not going to have attorneys needing to reinvent the wheel every time they get a phone call. I think we pride ourselves in our knowledge of local government law and being very up-to-date in that field. So when we get the call, it won't be 3, 4, 5 hours of research to get you an answer. Odds are we may know the answer right off the top of our heads, and if we don't, we can find it very quickly because we've already been working in the field. And I think on a day-to-day basis, that's going to save the city money and still get a very high quality of legal representation.
Thank you.
Welcome to Mount Dora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You answered my first question there, was about litigation, your proudest moment, but you just explained it. Thank you. Please provide us a brief overview of your experience with CRAs.
Sure. Let me see, where do we begin? Trying to organize that. I've recently been dealing with...
Deltona has a CRA.
Yeah, I was going to say, Deltona's got their CRA.
To nuts.
Right. Yeah, we've got Deltonas that we brought through that whole process, soup to nuts there. We've been blessed with an excellent planning staff in Deltona, and Becky and I both, I was running the shop on that for a little while, a couple of years ago when we were doing that. Brought a CRA that we're developing up there on Saxon, a couple different parts there, all the way through the entire process. Work with Volusia County, which is not the easiest county to work with, in getting them to sign off on a CRA because they see it as money out of their pocket and so on. In the city of Bunnell, where I'm city attorney, we've done substantial work on our CRA recently. Unfortunately, when they established it, and it was prior to my being city attorney there, they established right at the height of the market, which means they haven't accrued anything in their TIF going forward there. So it's kind of sitting semi-dormant for a long period of time. We've set up a number of CRAs for other cities that we've represented in the past. Beck, I think that'd be more in your area.
Yes, actually, my first CRA was with the City of Orlando when I was an assistant city attorney. CRAs are old. And we had one in the downtown area. And in the various cities that I've represented over the years, we have done them. I believe we did one in Longwood, we did one in Winter Garden. I'm trying to remember what else. But we're very well versed in those.
Welcome to Mount Dora.
Thank you.
There's only one of you who is Florida Bar certified in city, county, and local, correct?
Yes, that is me. I'm the certified attorney, but I would not want to leave the board with the impression that the lack of certification in any way indicates any lack of experience. You've already heard Becky has over 40 years of experience in this field. But yes, I do have the certification. I did go through the testing and the peer review and have the bar recognition of expertise in the field of local government law.
Okay, so you are called of counsel, correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been with the Vose Law Firm?
I've been doing of counsel off and on with the Vose Law Firm about 5 years. Would that be about right? Yeah. The way it works, if you have curiosity about it, is if Mount Dora decides to grant the award to the Vose Law Firm, I am an attorney for Mount Dora through the Vose Law Firm, just like any other attorney in the firm. However, I do have private clients separately from the Vose Firm. That's not local governments. That tends to be individuals. And when I work with the Vose Law Firm, which is fairly regularly, I do all the conflicts, checks, all apply. I do not take any cases that could in any way impact Mount Dora whatsoever. And my work is done at their firm and all is shared.
One more question. Just looking at your resume, City of Orlando from 2004 to 2009, and then Town of Oakland, which you are presently employed or working with, correct? So there's like a 5-year difference. So what was in that 5 years?
Oh, that is my firm, my other firm. We didn't want to confuse anyone. And when we do bids, we never my role is through the Vose Law Firm. So when we do bids, we don't include the private practice I have with individuals, but that is the individuals. I have the Consalo Law Firm, where I represent individuals, but whenever I work with governments, it's through the Vose Law Firm.
Okay, so that's why you didn't put it in there?
Yes, we thought it just muddies things, but the town of Oakland is actually something I work very closely with.
Okay.
I'm very affiliated with the Vose Law Firm, and the town of Oakland is one of those examples, actually.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Ms. Consalo, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Could you tell us about a situation when you've spent a lot of time working with the city council on an issue or a project only to find out that the council disagreed with your conclusion or your opinion, and how did you present your ideas and what was the outcome in a case like that?
This is going to sound cocky, but I have not ever had a situation, and you see from my resume, I worked for many years for Seminole County, many years for Orlando, I work for the town of Oakland now. I have never had a situation where I've been as a government advisor where the government has not taken my advice, and that does sound cocky, but let me explain. My practice has always been to brief within all the rules of sunshine and public records, of course, but to brief where I can, both staff and the elected officials, to make sure that the track I'm going down is actually the right track to be going down. And by the time, it's been my practice, if I bring something before a city commission, before a county commission, it's going to be well prepped. I'm not going to bring it before you to create an argument. I'm not going to bring it before you to have it shot down in flames. And I have to say, in all honesty, my relationship with all the boards I've worked with has been highly successful, and I know it sounds like I'm playing to the crowd, but that's the honest truth. I've just not had that situation.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, a pleasure to meet all three of you. I'm
Thank you.
Lori Tillett. In municipal law, reducing risk, which we all want to do, can often be in conflict with moving an issue forward or finishing up or moving toward an action that the council wants to accomplish. Can you tell us about a project or situation where you provided legal counsel that successfully balanced these competing factors?
Do you want to start?
Sure, yeah.
Leave it open to anyone who will do it.
Sure, absolutely. I think the best example is down in Anna Maria, most recently, where we were having to thread that needle. Let me tell you a little story about Anna Maria. Anna Maria is down on the west coast. Do you know where Anna Maria is? Yeah, isn't it beautiful?
Place.
It's down on the west coast of Florida. It's on the Anna Maria Island, one of the three cities down there on the island, and they have vacation rentals down there, lots of them. City council down there is not keen on the vacation rentals. We're talking about individual little bungalows that folks had gone from living in to renting out to 24 spring breakers, for the weekend or what have you. So coming into single-family neighborhoods and having 24 frat boys, hanging out in these houses for the weekend, you can imagine what that was doing. A lot of weddings too. A lot of young weddings apparently was the big thing, but a lot of rambunctiousness, we'll say it that way. And so the city council wanted to do something about this. Well, there are some legal issues with that. Legislature, in their infinite wisdom, decided to preempt some of the regulation you can have on that. In any event, their former city attorney had told them, well, there's just nothing you can do about vacation rentals. And this kind of goes to the question that was asked over here a little bit about when you've got a city attorney that just wants to say no, just not wanting to figure out where you want to go and try to find a way to get there. Anyways, they went out for a new city attorney, and they talked to a number of firms, and they ended up hiring us. And our first job, our core job, was to figure out a way to thread this needle, to deal with both the fact that the city commission wanted to move forward with something that was going to be very highly contentious legally, where we've got a lot of restrictions from the legislature on what you can regulate, how we can do that. And at the same time, so basically moving forward a proposal, while at the same time dealing with the fact that there's going to be substantial risk. We knew going into it that there was going to be a lawsuit. We knew that the city was going to get sued. First off, part of risk management is setting expectations. If there's going to be a potential for litigation, let everybody know at the outset. You let everybody know so it's no surprise and so that we can assess what we're getting into. So down there, they knew it and we told them. But the goal and the plan, it was kind of a synergy between ordinance drafting and litigation strategy. At every turn, we drafted that ordinance in its first draft to be legally defensible. All right, so we had a plan going in on that ordinance on every part of it, how to legally defend it, okay? At the same time, it was a wish list. It had every single thing, because these folks really wanted to clamp down on vacation rentals. So we also felt out from the commission, what are your wants and what are your needs? So we knew what we were dealing with in doing that. So we came up with a very strict and strong ordinance. It was the strongest ordinance in the state of Florida. I can pretty much tell you that for certain. Based on our communications with other city attorneys and planning departments in other cities that wanted to copy it as a model. So we came up with this very strict ordinance. As we predicted and as we had told the city commission was going to happen, we got sued. And so that then became a negotiation, kind of a dance. Not with the other side, it was a dance with the other side, but it was working with our city commission. All right, where are our wants and where are our needs? Because some of their arguments here, even though we think we could beat them, it's going to cost you a lot of money for us to beat them. We could give on these couple things, but keep all these things over here and wipe out all their arguments. Basically kick the legs out of all their arguments. And so we went through a couple rounds of that and have now gotten to the point where after that ordinance was whittled down, not that much, just a little bit, putting substantial restrictions on the vacation rentals, the plaintiffs in that case decided it was not worth it for them to keep suing. And they dropped that case. And so now you've got it there. So that just, what your question just saying to me is, it's exactly what you have to do, particularly when you have something controversial you have to do. You have to go in with eyes wide open and let everybody know what the risk is, and then go in with a plan to be able to implement the city commission's will.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very concise and clear and easy to understand. Thank you for not speaking a lot of legalese.
No problem.
Good evening, Cal Wolfson. Thank you for coming. Ms. Consalo, you're the only one that's helped this firm qualify to even bid here. So I'm looking to you for your qualifications and the quality that you have. Obviously, there's great quality here, but you're the only one that makes them qualified to serve us under our proposal, under our RFP. Have you ever served as a principal city attorney for any city in Florida? And in this case, you have a separate firm. You and your husband have a Consalo Law Firm, and still do, even after your Oakland representation, you still have that. Do you have your own malpractice insurance? Does it cover us? Are you covered in their firm? What's the relationship with that? And tell me about your malpractice coverage limits and so forth.
Yeah, so the biggest question is yes. When I work with the Vose Law Firm, I'm covered by their malpractice for the clients we represent together. My own firm, we had malpractice for years. We never needed it. I'm proud to say I've never had a malpractice suit. I've never had a grievance. I've never had an ethical violation. I've never had anything, and we felt that it was not cost effective. But what my firm does will have nothing to do with Mount Dora. It's kept completely separate. That's both for Mount Dora's benefit and for practical reasons, of course. As far as lead representation, I've sat and represented councils before, but there's always been a city attorney because I've worked for very large governments, Seminole County and City of Orlando, and of course they had their lead who had usually been there for many, many years. On my Oakland work, I am their lead attorney for their code enforcement matters. But to be honest, Becky and Wade actually have served more often than myself as the lead city council attorney, and I think that shows that there is just, again, I hate to be so redundant, but there's just a lot of experience with our firm, and I'm proud to have the certification. I'm very proud of it, and it was a long road, but you were well served with all of us, and even our members who aren't here today.
And what are the malpractice limits?
It's a great question. What are we at? 2 million?
2 million.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So sometimes you leave an interview and there's a question that you wish someone had asked, or a point you want to make. So pretend I asked that question that you wanted us to ask.
Wow.
That's a great question. Got to tell you some of my really good war stories already. We really like telling the Manji case, that inverse condemnation case, because it's a good example of where aggressive litigation in the service of the city can send a good message to folks that the city should not be a target for litigation. I guess the thing I would tell you all is you all need to work with a city attorney. This is just from experience that we've all had over the last many years. I'm drawing particularly on experience I've dealt with the last couple years up in Bunnell, where I'm city attorney. I went in Bunnell a couple years ago when their city was in turmoil. They had just hired a new city manager 2 weeks before I was hired. Okay? New city manager, new city attorney, about a month and a half later, new finance director. A month or two after that, new police chief. We had a complete turnover. And we had a city commission at that time, I'll just tell y'all, that were 3-2 folks at each other's throats. And this happens. I mean, we're around in city commission meetings all over the state all the time, so we see that happening. What I can suggest to you all, because it certainly wasn't just me. A lot of it was the city manager as well. Work with a city attorney that everybody on the city commission can work with, because city attorneys should not be taking sides in political factions or any of this stuff. It is, I will just tell you from my years of experience and our firm's decades and decades years of experience, it is inappropriate for city attorneys to be taking sides. It's kind of like Justice Alito said in his confirmation hearings. He called balls and strikes. Now, our job is, it's not exactly like that. We represent the city. We represent, so the actions of the city commission, the city manager when he's making those decisions and so on. So we have an advocacy role, but that's to represent the whole city and to represent the commission. And so I guess the thought I would give you based on that experience, we had a similar thing in Deltona. When you went in Deltona, that there was a lot of division there. But I think in order to be able to work well with a city attorney, for everybody in the commission to be able to do that and to be productive, work with someone that everybody on the commission thinks they can work with.
Along that same vein, when I took over as city attorney for Deltona, it was a very split commission. They've got 7 commissioners. And the former city attorney had aligned himself with one side. And that does not work. I mean, it just, from the very get-go, it doesn't work. It doesn't help the people that he aligned himself with. It didn't help the city as a whole. It didn't help the 3 people who he didn't get along with. And finally, they recognized that, and they decided to, essentially start over. And during the interviews for that, I explained to them that you can't take sides. You can't be close friends with a little niche group with the city commission. You've got to represent the entire city, the entire city commission. You've got to take everybody's input and work with it. Everybody's ideas, it doesn't matter if it's just one person has an idea. If they call up and they say, well, I want to do this, you work with them and figure out a way that it possibly could work legally, and then obviously the city attorney doesn't make a presentation on it. The city commissioner, does make the presentation. And at least you've worked with the people and come up with a way that what may have started out as a crazy idea, makes legal sense. So we work with everybody. We work with staff very, very well. And if you hire our law firm, you won't be hiring somebody who would take sides at all. We just don't do that. Even if we're asked to do that, we won't do it.
Again, echoing those sentiments 100%. I guess, and maybe it's too late an hour for this, but I heard the concerns, or not concerns, but interest in CRAs, interest in risk management, interest in billable rates. I guess I'm wondering, and maybe it is too late, and there's too many members here, and it's something for your new city attorney to meet with you individually, but what does the council feel right now are the greatest pressures facing Mount Dora that you're going to be looking for attorneys to help you through? Because I think we'd love to know what those are and let you know some of our experience in that field if there's time. I know it's late, so if that's too loaded a question.
I think if you were selected, obviously we would have you ask that question, but that might detract from some of the others that get to ask questions.
I think we should keep it on a question basis. And,
Okay.
And then, down the road here, I think you kind of maybe already did your research, I'm sure, just a little bit. So I think you know some of our concerns and what we have going for us here, and what we're looking for, I think, and we're doing the RFP as I guess like a more of a due diligence on part of being a new council here. So, but anyway, my question to you is going to be on land use issues. So
My favorite topic.
okay, and have and are always expected to continue to be a very contentious part of city business. And tell us some of your experience in handling appeals and other land use issues.
Who should go first? Okay. I didn't jump in on the risk management, so I think I'm going to tell a war story that would answer risk management and land use. It's probably for all of us, it's almost hard to narrow down a case, but most recently, most of my experience has been representing citizens on very, very large issues. I don't know if you followed some of these in the paper, but the Lake Pickett North, Lake Pickett South, the West Orange High School. I also handle quite a bit of smaller development issues. But on the government side of things, this is where I wanted to tell the story a little on the risk management. I have a variety of land use issues, some of which are very unique. And I think this is a good story to show how some different things come into play. Do any of you remember the garbage man in Altamont Springs? You remember the garbage man? He was in the news on and off and on and off.
Artist.
He was an artist. I'm sorry. Yes, he was an artist. This gentleman, he basically he had a landfill in his front yard, and it was art. And he built the posterior, should we say. He modeled a posterior, and then he cut out the prime area of the posterior and put a light behind it, and then put a judge's name across the light. So if you drove by at night, you would see the judge's name light up. And the stuff on his property was crazy. There were airplane parts, there were old barrels, there was artwork, there were toilets that he had planted plants in because that made it more artistic. And more concerning, there were weapons in the house. There was a little girl in the house. There was a swimming pool that had old mildewy water. There were rats, and all of this was right in the heart of Altamont Springs. It was a major land use issue. The neighbors were going crazy. We ended up having to have a multi-task force, and it was very interesting to see land use in the context of bringing in the sheriff's office, bringing in the state attorney's office, bringing in, of course, code enforcement, bringing in and I'm organizing all this, and the purpose of it was very small. It's just, we think of big land use projects, we think of DRIs, we think of CRAs, we think of community development districts, and I have lots of experience with all of that. But at a very personal level, we had to resolve this terrible land use in the middle of a residential area, and we used a multi-task force to do it somewhat, because I'm trying to tie this back to risk management, to limit the exposure of our one government entity, to limit our exposure and to maximize government efficiency, and we did that, and we actually were able to sell the art. We sold the art, we made a little money off the art, didn't even come close to offsetting how much it cost to load all the art onto a truck, but we eventually got the gentleman, I hope there's no big sympathizers here, but we did have the gentleman, he was put in prison, and we were able to... You're kidding. Oh my God. I need one of these. And we were able to get, in a very small micro level, some really good land use results and bring the neighborhood back to a residential neighborhood, bring the property values back, make the neighbors happy again. And then, of course, on the grander scale, tons of DRI, development of regional impact experience, lots of community development, district experience, zonings, future land use on both sides of the table. So I think I can honestly say that I'm very well versed without, I am ringing my own bell, so I'm going to stop right there.
Ring your own bell.
All right.
Give an additional war story real quick along those lines. You had asked particularly about land use appeals and so on, sure. Just to give you one example, this actually goes back to strategically accomplishing a city commission's goals, okay? And this is actually in the town of Oakland. We handle Oakland's land use and litigation matters, and in particular, they had, you all know where Oakland is in West Orange County, right over there, right off of 50 there, yeah. It is beautiful, isn't it? And so they're right there on 50, and so they've been seeing influx of change in character, particularly on 50 there. That a lot of folks want to come in the sense, sewer came in, right? It was a sewer, right, since sewer came in, seeing a lot more desire for commercial development there. Well, that's not the direction Oakland wants to go. So a racetrack wanted to go in there on 50. And so you got racetrack wanting to go in there. It was right there. The city commission didn't want to see that going in there, all right? So their initial reaction was, well, we're just going to deny their application going there. That would be a complete loser, all right, based on what they had and what they were doing. So instead of that, we helped them think a little bit more strategically. And so looked at everything they had there, and instead, on our advice, City Commission held firm in the thought that they were going to require access not through a curb cut, all right? So, gas station, right? But access not through a curb cut on 50, but rather through a signalized intersection nearby, all right? This made that project a lot less appealing to racetrack, but we saw that as strategically something much more legally defensible. They went ahead and implemented that. Didn't help that racetrack walked in and started screaming and yelling, saying in the little town council meeting that they were going to hire this big law firm in Orlando, and they were going to roll right over this little town. Well, they held firm on that, and lo and behold, the firm filed a petition for cert from their from the action of the the town commission there. And it went before the 3-judge panel in Orange County Circuit Court. We defended the city on that, town on that, because we had already thought through what are the moving parts here and what sort of legal issues are we going to see in that. They played right into it in their appeal. We went in and got a unanimous opinion enforcing and affirming the action of the city commission. So we try to start at the beginning, just as Becky was saying before. We see where a commission wants to go, and sometimes, I may have mentioned this before, oftentimes, I can't tell you how many times I've seen where city attorneys end up in the role of where they're the guy who's always saying no all the time. Okay? It's unhelpfully saying no, that's illegal to staff, to the city commission, whatever. No, that's illegal. No, you can't do that, without ever trying to offer some other way to accomplish something. Because oftentimes, I'll tell you, folks may have a goal they want to accomplish, and then sometimes you'll think of a way to get there, right? But oftentimes, or sometimes, the way that's been thought of to get there may have some legal problems to it or some exposure, or it may be outright illegal. But we see it as our job to understand where you're trying to go, and then be able to say to you creatively, but we can't get there this way. We can get there this way, or this way. And then, because we've already thought about it and already anticipate, see, we're litigators as well. That's actually a nice synergy that we like. We think like litigators when we're writing ordinances. And frankly, it's very helpful with judges when we're litigating, thinking like local government attorneys, to be able to explain to the judge the history of, the Home Rule Power Act and things like this. But we think strategically in the ordinances, particularly the ones we think are going to be challenged, as we talked about there, or any sort of action by the commission, to be able to set it up so that we're playing on the ball field we want to be playing on when those actions come down the line. So we try to think about it that way. We've had good success in doing that.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. So,
Okay. What's your experience with bond issues?
Millions.
I spent 2.5 hours today on a conference call with S&P going over our presentation, City of Deltona's presentation for it was a $10.5 million bond issue. I have represented cities over my entire career doing local counsel work for bond issues. I did that actually for City of Orlando. I've done it for every city I've represented, and I've been city attorney for, I guess it's 10 different cities now. I think it's 10. And I'm doing them right now. So I'm very attuned with that. I know how to, if they are bond issues that need to be validated, I know how to validate a bond issue. It's not rocket science, but I've done it a bunch of times. So we're very good at that.
Absolutely. The only city that we haven't done it on is the town of Pearson because they have no debt. But other than that, I've been doing, we actually just went through, we radically redid our finances in the city of Bunnell, thank God, over the last 1.5 years, and we did a lot of refinancing of old water and sewer bonds and so on to much lower interest rates is excellent work. So we both, and I just got through whole rounds of that and refinancing everything to much more advantageous rates for the city. So we feel exceedingly confident being able to work with bond counsel, which there's only a couple firms up there, on a couple streets up in New York where they do that stuff, but serving as local counsel, working with them and making all those things happen. We've been doing it for decades.
And it's very, very important to have a city attorney who can attend these rating conferences like I did today to frame the city and its debt structure and everything that they are concerned with, because you have to make a very good impression with them in order to get the proper rating, in order to get a good interest rate.
Right.
So that's important. It's not something you don't want to learn as you're doing it.
Going now, and as being able to hang with the bond counsel, if you will, and being able to push back and really advocate for the city. Bond counsel is supposed to be representing the city as well. These are the outside attorneys that handle the very technical stuff on the street, as they call it. So, but they're not with the city every day. They don't understand necessarily the complete debt structure or anything like that. So being able to sit with them in person or on the phone or whatever, to be able to make sure they understand and then be in the room on these, for the ratings meetings and so on, to be able to speak their language and be able to handle that is something that's very important.
So we have time for one more question, and I'm going to let Ms. Richby have last question.
Yes, I'm curious, why didn't both Mr. Vose and Ms. Vose get certified like Karen has?
Okay, I had been, when they started the certification process, I had been practicing local government law for approximately 25 years. And I didn't see any point in it. At the time of the certifications, I don't teach in seminars very often anymore, but at that time I was kind of on the seminar circuit, and I ended up teaching some of the seminars that people took in order to get certified. If you look at, and I take the certification classes because they're really excellent primers, to come to keep us current on things. But it's interesting, if you look at a lot of the people who speak at those meetings, they're not certified because they're the old-timers who never, thought that it was appropriate, or it takes a lot of time. It really does take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I've never felt the need for. I've never had a city who asked me to do it. I guess if the city asked me to do it, I guess I would. And when Wade came along, and he's been doing the same type of practice, it never, frankly, occurred to me to suggest that he do it, because we have not needed it. We have not. It's highly unusual to have a city have a requirement in an RFP for a certification. Just as an example, Jim Wilson, who is of counsel with our firm also, and he's on our, you would get the benefit of his expertise if you hired our firm. He was city attorney for St. Augustine for, 15, 20 years, something like that. He's not certified. He's of my generation. And some of the older people have done it. I hate to refer to myself as an older person. I'm only 66, but anyway.
Great. On record, we didn't ask that question.
But no, I don't see the point. I'm very proud that Karen is. I mean, I think that's great. She decided that that was something she wanted to do. It was just something that I didn't see the benefit to it.
Okay. Which attorney would be the primary and secondary for this city?
It would probably be,
You're not sure?
Karen.
it would probably be Wade, and then Karen would be secondary.
Just so we know that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
But you'd probably see my shining face around here a lot, because when we represent cities, we all get involved to some extent. And I will tell you that some of the easiest research I do is walk across the hall and say something to Wade, because, I have in the back of my mind, he just did this, maybe he's got something. Or I can call Karen, or, whatever. You will probably, if an issue comes up, if you need a particular type of ordinance, you'll probably get the person who did the most recent one, very similar to it, to do the work. So you would get the benefit of all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. With that, we're going to conclude for the evening, and thank you very much for coming here tonight and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners,
Thank you.
Not a problem.
No problem.
Would you believe we were on schedule until we got to the attorney part?
Attorneys talk a lot. Who would have thought?
I might have not told the truth.
Thanks again.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Drink some coffee before you go.
Okay, as usual, let's take a couple minutes, please.
Time, but every 7 feet. Stretch. Go home.
I think we're about in extra innings already.
It means whatever nobody else wants, job description. Whatever nobody else wants, whatever nobody else wants to do.
Just say yes, sir.
Okay.
I know.
If you just rank all three, then we can add the numbers to the bottom and let's simplify.
Oops, I'm assuming we can,
The recording
oops,
on
we're not, I'm sorry.
Started January 7th, 2016.
You ready for me to turn on the recording?
14 weeks.
All right, we're rolling.
Okay.
I'm assuming we can discuss, maybe it's not worth it or not wasting time, but I'd like to,
Just do it and let's go.
I'd like to have some discussion time, and I'd like to, without being presumptuous, give you some, my benefit of my background, based upon what I've heard. If that's going to be, or do you just want to vote and go?
I don't know, we did it last time.
I want to talk about it. I'd like to spend 5-10 minutes talking about my observations, because I've been there and done that on their firms.
Okay.
I'd agree with that.
Go ahead.
And then whatever the chips fall, they fall. First comments are about the fees. I think all firms are minimally qualified. I'll get to that later. Some are more qualified than others. Fees are all in the ballpark. They're basically the same. Depending on what we choose, the last firm gave us 4 choices, and that's a Hobson's choice, to make a choice there for them. If you're comparing apples and apples, you'd have to look at the per hour or the rates that were everybody else offered, and that's basically in that $150, $155 an hour range, based upon the hours that are posted there. So I see very little distinction in that area. The firm we rejected, Fowler Law Firm, was an outlier. They were in that close to $200 range. The Stenstrom Law Firm, well, I'll just leave that as it is. Regarding the RFP, in my view, is what governs this. That's the guiding principles upon which all of the firms should be governed. And our analysis should be based on that. Page 8 sets out the RFP 11 criteria, and the criteria include board certification, obviously, litigation experience. I think they all have that. Depth of the firm, that varies, but that's pretty good. And background investigation and reference check is another requirement criteria. The proposed format includes identifying the principal and secondary attorneys that will serve us. And we heard here at this last one that Mr. Wade will be the primary. And then the page 5 of the RFP says that all responsibility rests with one law firm, which is not to be a subsidiary or affiliate with limited resources. That will prompt me to mention that in other discussions. The Vose Law Firm, which we just heard, the only board-certified attorney is Miss Consalo. You pronounce it differently, Mayor, being from Jersey.
Depends where it's from.
Consalo, I say, maybe more Italian than not. As a Norwegian, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. She's not listed as a member of the Vose Law Firm. You'll notice she is not listed at all as a member, either in our application or on their website. Her website with her husband, and I have that here for those of you that are interested, do not even show that she has a relationship with the Vose Law Firm, even though that is, in fact, a relationship she disclosed. She mentions the Vose Law Firm has no mention of her in their application or on their letterhead of being of counsel as the predecessors did. And so I'm not sure where that goes. If the only one that qualifies the firm is Ms. Consalo and our primary attorney is a not qualified person without her, That seems to raise some, it's too strong a word, but the only thing I can think of, and I apologize for it, is a bait and switch type of thing, okay? I'm concerned about that. Under the Vose Law Firm website, under their local government representation category, they show the cities they represent, but there's no mention in the Vose Law Firm of Ms. Consalo. And she's the only one that, again, qualifies them. So, and as in the Stenstrom Law Firm, at least Mr. Groot, Lonnie Groot, signed the application, which then made that application certainly qualified it because he, the board certified attorney, signed it, and in this case she did not. It has nothing to do with the quality of the attorneys. They're all minimally qualified, and I'm assuming very honorable people, so I'm not speaking to that quality. The 5-year gap question that Ms. Rich asked, I had the same question, and she answered that by saying she was in private practice with her husband at that time. For that reason, that firm is third on my list. I don't mind disclosing. The Stenstrom application, they do show Mr. Groot on their letterhead as of counsel. He's not a partner or an associate, but therefore a contract attorney. And the only way that firm gets qualified is because they have a contract and of counsel. Now, he's been with them, they disclosed for 5 or 6 years. So he certainly has the experience to do that. And the other fee issue I just forgot to mention with the Groot Law Firm, the Stenstrom Law Firm, is they don't give us any price break. It's $155 an hour, whether period for anything they do, and that can be good, it can be bad, might be risky, as the other firms had some breaks in there for us. Their backup attorney is Mr. Colbert. He certainly has qualifications and is a partner of the firm, but is not board certified. Then we get to the Shepherd Law Firm, and it's clear to me, and I'm assuming everybody in the council, if the majority of the council wants to get rid of the attorney and have a new attorney, they certainly, that will happen. There's no question about that in my mind. But I don't think, if you analyze all three, to me, and again, in my background, not in Florida, but elsewhere, which probably doesn't mean much, but in that regard, they had the amazing depth of 4 board-certified attorneys, and they would have had Miss Oded Kiki, her first name is nicknamed Kiki, I guess one was here before. She would have done it, but the test for the board certification was at the same time as she's planning to deliver her baby. And I think that was apparently an appropriate choice for her not to take the board certification. But she will eventually do that. Ms. Cassidy, one of the law firm board-certified firms in the Shepherd board-certified attorneys, has served 16 cities and was the editor of the Law Review. Now, for those that aren't familiar, a Law Review editor is the top banana in all, as a senior in law school, the top banana. You edit the legal documents that are put out for the world to see in terms of legal research from that law school, and that's the highest. It's the highest you can get, other than maybe being the top in the class. That is an honor that is given only to the best legal writers in the law school. Andrew Hand has served 8 cities. If there's anybody that was overqualified, it would be Andrew Hand, only because the fact he's got 2 bachelor's degrees, 2 master's degrees, one in Masters of Law in Environmental and Land Use, and a Master's of Science in Real Estate. plus he's board certified. So, and we've had Andrew Hand here serving us from time to time. And Ms. Oded, who is not board certified yet, has also a master's in law in environmental issues. Drew Smith serves our city, serves 5 cities and is board certified. And then there's Cliff Shepard. The distinction that I come to, and it's more intuitive than anything, is that Cliff did not need, Mr. Shepard did not need to do any, and again, my words, I can't think of any salesman's puffing. He did not need to do that because he's a known quantity. For 10 years, he has the institutional knowledge of which he was duly proud, and we would lose 10 years of institutional knowledge by changing law firms without anybody, at least in my hearing, telling me why. I don't know why, other than there might be some promises during elections that we want to change the city attorney, and I don't even know why that would be necessary, even if I had made the promise myself. Because he served us well, and I just am surprised that there would be a trade-off with that institutional and historical knowledge that we have just to change law firms and throw out the 10 years of institutional and historical knowledge that has served us so well. It's not that important. He has $5 million in coverage, his firm does. The others have 2, and this Consalo has none. Now, I'm surprised that she has no liability insurance, and I imagine it's a financial decision they made because it's expensive, as it typically would be. But that is either a risk they're willing to take, but it's a risk that would worry me for all of their other clients that they serve to make the decision not to have liability insurance, malpractice insurance, for their other clients, not cities, but their other clients.
That'd be their problem, not ours, so.
Well, it would be our problem. They've said she's covered by their firm. And for their other clients, that's their problem.
As long as their firm's covered, that's fine.
And the other thing that I know, Cliff didn't mention it, but I'm aware of it because I've contacted Florida League of Cities about Cliff and the others, is who's the first attorney that is called by the Florida League of Cities when it comes to things like CRAs? I think Mr. Roulette asked about CRAs, very good questions about him. The one that represents Florida League of Cities CRAs Association is Cliff Shepard. And so the most knowledgeable attorney of all of them on CRAs would be Mr. Shepard, in my view. And then Mr. Shepard was proud of the Sullivan Ranch recovery. As a has-been attorney, I can tell you that saving $2.1 million for our taxpayers in Mount Dora was no small task, given the fact the statute of limitations was basically had run. And that is a significant bit of negotiation by a skilled attorney. And even if we had to sue Sullivan Ranch, if the city had to sue Sullivan Ranch, I'm suggesting to you that it would have either been lost or it would have been negotiated down significantly in the millions. So I, for one, am impressed with that. He's obviously a skilled litigator. So I think that with 10 years of exceptional service with essentially the most qualified law firm in my view, and I'm only one of 7, of course, and an equitable fee schedule, no adverse legal issues at all for a decade of service with us, demonstrated skills, I don't see any reason to punish both Mount Dora and its residents, as well as punish that level of success and loyalty and professional skill by ending their service. So when it's all said and done, as far as I can tell, the only reason to change is because the majority wants to change. And that's the end of my speech, with apologies for the length. Thank you.
I didn't even time you said 10 minutes, so I'm going to take it to your words. You went 10 minutes. So.
Oh, and by the way, one other thing I did forget.
Sounds like Columbo now.
In Lonnie Groot's case, Mr. Groot, I didn't get a chance, I think he's the one I got one question in, and deservedly so. He served, he didn't say, it wasn't shown on his resume, or any of the resumes from that law firm, but he was a city attorney for Bunnell, according to news articles, and lasted there 2 months and resigned, surprised everybody, and it was a dispute over fees, according to this, and I have the news article for anybody that might be interested. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Fill out the form.
And just to be clear, number 1 is our first choice, number 3 is our last choice.
Good point.
Right?
Australian secret ballot.
Not secret. Got our names on it.
Yes, not secret. Yeah, I guess it's not secret.
Not secret. Okay.
Why don't you come look, just so
Yeah.
the two of us.
Sure.
We will make it by midnight.
The 3 o'clock has really got me spooked.
I wonder if they put that on there. Is that a lark?
Yeah, if we roll, then we can welcome Mr.
A noise?
Report the work. We'll tell we'll see it.
This is a
In the interim, I want to thank the council members for doing this tonight, and I know it was hard to get together all of our schedules, and along with the attorneys and everybody, and I appreciate everybody's effort that you're willing to stay tonight to get this done, and also the audience again for your participation and being here, and staff, especially to our staff for putting everything together and being here also. There's no overtime for Gwen, by the way, and, no, I'm kidding.
We got paid.
We'll get a little time off there somewhere.
We got paid by the hour, we'd be in great shape.
That's right.
That's that bill began on time.
We did save a little bit of time. We kicked our attorney out for the evening, so saved a few hours of billing, so that's great. Yeah.
The Stenstrom firm came in first with a 4, and then Shepherd came in second with 3.
Who came in first?
Okay. Hey, move we adjourn? Wait, should we vote on? Oh, yes. I think we need to make a motion. Yes, we do. To extend an agreement, however we're going to work that, and I think it's I'm going to defer to you. Is it going to be, now we had real quick, we had just, with Shepherd's firm, we had just a billing agreement that was signed, wasn't even signed by Mr. Shepherd, and it was signed by the city manager. We want more of a contract with this firm to spell out the different issues.
That's a decision of the council.
That's what I'm asking.
I don't,
I mean, we can, we can work with that. That's right.
I don't, 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 I don't,
And I feel we should have more of a contract than just a billing arrangement.
And it'll be interesting, who will be drafting that contract?
I don't know. I'll let it, you are.
I'm not licensed in Florida, thank you.
Well, I don't really see a need for a contract. I mean, I think a billing agreement is...
Is everybody satisfied with the fee structure that was presented, or do I need to do anything additionally with any fee structure?
No.
Okay.
It seems to me that, that the letter of understanding or the similar document could be put together or submitted by the Stenstrom firm.
Will serve as a...
Would serve as our...
Okay, good enough. So let's make a motion and a vote on it.
I move to select the firm of Stenstrom
I got it.
et al. And as city attorney, and
That's right.
I guess that's it, isn't it?
I think we asked the questions earlier about transition, so there'll be a transition process, and that'll be for two attorneys to work out at that point. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay. And like always, we have motion and second. Does anybody from the public wish to comment?
How about discussion at the council
Okay,
level?
well, we could.
We should.
We could. We can bring it to the public first and come back, but we'll discuss.
There are many questions in transition here. Changing law firms is a serious/risky process.
Where are they?
There are legal implications on both sides, both for the Stenstrom Law Firm and the Shepherd Law Firm and the city of Mount Dora and its residents. So I'm suspecting, I don't want to approve any contract or memorandum of understanding from my standpoint, only being one of 7, without having our city attorney look at it and give us his opinion on its adequacy. It's a legal document. Even if it's a memorandum of understanding, it affects us. And so that this transition is going to take weeks and maybe months, I suspect. I don't know.
I don't think it'll take months, but I don't think it'll take months.
Yeah.
We're talking with a bunch of professionals.
But
Yes.
I'm quite sure from an ethical standpoint, Cliff's firm will understand, he's been outvoted by the majority, or will be when the vote comes, and that he will work in the transition. That's what an ethical attorney would do. But there are many issues that are pending, and not least of which is litigation that Medallion is still pending, and
But that's in our insurance, this other firm's hands. He's just a counsel with them, but
Yes.
but it's from primary. But anyway,
but the RFP requires our city attorney to be involved in that.
Mr. Earl, I do agree with you, and I would like to, with the motion to, and make it, I guess, contingent would be the right word, upon review of the city attorney for the agreement, to make sure that the agreement's in order before we turn around and sign it at that point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point by Mr. Rolfson, so I'd amend it for that.
Okay, and second also, right.
I'll second it for that.
Okay?
Public comment?
Pardon me?
Public comment before you vote?
Yes, thank you. Public comment.
By law.
It's late, gotta forgive.
I don't think I have to say it again, Roseanne Botto, 541 East First Avenue. Of all the decisions that you all have made, and as you know, I have not agreed with a lot of them, I think we have lost a fabulous city manager. We have lost Gus. We have lost Mark. We're now about to throw away probably one of the best city attorneys in this state, if not outside this state, for no apparent good reason. Not one of you who's going to vote to get rid of Cliff Shepard has ever articulated why. Not one of you can voice one professional thing against him. I cannot imagine how you're going to explain to people that you voted to bring in a city attorney, as important as that is, with lesser qualifications overall, a firm that doesn't have what Cliff Shepard's firm has. I don't know how you're going to respond to reporters that say, why'd you get rid of Cliff Shepard? You're just going to say, duh, I mean, I don't know what else you could possibly say. This is ridiculous, folks. Absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I just don't get it. Why would you clean house? I mean, it's bad enough we've lost some key people who could help us run this city and help you run this city. And now I've marveled at how Cliff Shepard has sat here, meeting after meeting after meeting, and I don't think I've missed any, and has guided you all skillfully. He knows that some of you are newbies. He knows that you don't know the difference between legislation and what other points there are that you can talk about, not talk about publicly or privately. He has held your hands. I was talking to somebody once and I said, it's amazing to me how Cliff just sits there and he guides them. He's so diplomatic. He tells them what they need to know, keeps them out of trouble. And the comment that I got back was, and yes, and there's no appreciation for that whatsoever. And apparently there's not. I don't think you all even realize what Cliff has done for you, what he's meant to you, and you're just going to throw him out because somebody apparently made some commitments in the election process. That's my guess, a lot of people's guess. So you're going to have to live with this decision that you have brought in somebody to be our city council, city attorney, with less qualifications than Cliff Shepard's firm. I'm glad you're the ones that have to defend that, and I don't, because I couldn't.
Thank you. Is there any other comments?
I just have a question. Mr. Colbert asked me to contact him tonight if they were chosen, and I don't know that I should be doing that.
I don't think that's our role.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Did you want to call them, or, okay, you left his contact information with me. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, can we have the vote, please?
Oh, back to council.
Yes.
Well, in fairness and in transparency, people wanted to hear a little bit of some reasoning. So if I could, please have a few moments to share.
Go ahead.
I heard after we went through some nitpicking by Ms. Tillett on the qualifications document, and it went out. We agreed to that document. We then went through a process where we reviewed them, and we came up with 3 that were qualified. And we spent a fair amount of time nitpicking, I believe, the of counsel or board certified or whatever. Might I point out that people do this all the time, and it is insulting, but I want to do it to show the point. Mr. Corral, you got no votes. Mr. Wolfson, you got no votes. Ms. Rich, you actually didn't win the election, you tied. You see
I won the election.
Point of order, point of order.
Yes, it was, and I won. I'm the one sitting here. How dare you say that? I won. I'm sitting here.
Whoa.
At least I didn't lie to get elected.
Mrs. Rich, please.
May I make sure that the point is correct, that the election was as it was? And you see the point, and you see the anger that it has brought out in people. You see, the point is, these 3 attorney firms were minimally qualified. To talk about all these little nitpick things were of no importance. Mr. Wolfson's opinion, Mr. Krail's opinion, Ms. Rich's opinion matter equally as anyone else's. All 3 of these firms were qualified. All 3 of them deserved a fair shake. It does not bother me that one is of counsel, one is not, one is something else. That's what I believe on the qualifications. Number 2,
Excuse me, Mayor. I have got to go. I have to get up for work tomorrow. I'm not taking.
We haven't taken the vote yet. Council still has quorum, I believe, point of order, so,
Make note of record that Ms. Rich left the meeting.
so at the end of World War II, millions of people died. Britain is torn apart, and yet, right after victory in Europe, the war isn't over yet. And what do the British people do? They take the person who got them through it all, through all the blood, sweat, and tears, Churchill, and throughout his government. The idea that this city will stop operating because we change one of our contractors is amazing to me. It is insulting to the intelligence of any one of these people here that we don't have enough brains to figure out who to choose to help us run the city. Furthermore, this is a decision of the council which I will vote on. Mr. Pasteur was not terminated by me. Mr. Regentine was not terminated by me. Mr. Gus, I can't get his last name, was not terminated by me. I take no responsibility for those actions. I take full responsibility for the vote upon which I'm going to take. And I believe that in the city, you have to have trust. You have to have trust of the citizenship all the way through. I did not get elected because I'm handsome, because I'm really smart, or anything else. It's because people wanted change. There's no real profound answer here. They wanted change. They wanted something new. They wanted a city that was receptive to businesses coming in, that it wanted a city that treated people fairly. There is no magical way to deal with things sometimes, but rather to clear the slate and start over. And in November and the following November, you can clear the slate of these people if you don't feel that it's done right. But in the meantime, we are doing what we think, individually, but then collectively, to do what we think is best for the city. We can very well be wrong. I am glad to admit that we may be wrong. But to suggest that we can't take these actions or that we're being silly is wrong too, because our city will survive with any one of us gone. Our water is running, our lights are on. People need to realize that it is not about the people or the processes, it's about the product on the back end. And we spend far too much time worrying about the people and the processes and not enough time about the product, which is our lovely city. Our responsibility is to all citizens, not one contractor.
I have a comment here. I certainly understand, Mr. Slaby, what you said about Mr. Creel and I not being equal to your election, and that we were just slipped in because we didn't have any opposition. I think you're the one that steps up and talks about being insulting, and you criticize insults. I think you should carefully think about your words in that regard, because Mr. Creel is as qualified as you are, to use your own words, as you are, as I am, as the mayor is. And to slip in the fact that, oh, he's somehow substandard or I'm somehow substandard because we didn't have any opposition is at minimal insulting. And I was a history and political science major in college, and I think if you're familiar with political science and history issues, the qualification is equal to yours and not higher, not lower, but equal. So I think the anger that you're just disclosing came out fairly clearly, and I don't think it was necessary to do that. I want to add that and that's just my view, I want to add that the only reason we are here is because of your motion, first of all, to terminate our attorney immediately in light of pending litigation and all that other pending issues, and seconded by Ms. Tillett, as I recall, and then after reasonable minds started to say, oops, we can't really do that, then it was backed off. I think that was at the December meeting. So the only reason we are here is because you and Ms. Tillett, for sure, on the public record, want to get rid of our attorney immediately. Or whoever, it wasn't you, I'm sorry.
No, let me...
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Please. So whoever it was, the motion was Mr. Slaby's motion. And the council has made the decision. I agree with, we'll make the decision. We're quite sure how it's going to work out. But I think we ought to take some step back, everybody on this council, and stop being so adversarial. And that includes my view of what I just heard, that it was nothing except adversarial, and causing one council member to walk out perhaps for that reason. And I'm not sure that that's the appropriate reason that you should be, anybody on this council should be condescending over any other council member. It was a condescending statement and perhaps arrogant. And those are my words. I just was surprised that you were trying to make a statement explaining your vote, and nobody's ever explained it yet why. We have never heard it why, other than a political promise going way back when, who knows why, who knows where. But to condescend and complain and point fingers at other fellow council members that you initially complain about and object to seems very inappropriate. And I think we all ought to step back, realize we're all brothers and sisters here, as you appropriately have said before, but not start condescending to every other council member with whom you might disagree. I think that's wrong. I think it demeans our audience and it demeans the public that put us here.
And thank you for those words. And
May I make a comment, please?
I would really...
I'm just going to make a very quick comment.
I'm going to ask for the floor again, so you may as well.
Okay. When motions are made from the beginning of our tenure as council members, it was my understanding that in order to bring anything to the table for discussion, a motion is made and a second is made for discussion. Correct? As far as I'm concerned, there is no topic that should be off limits for discussion. If a council person makes a motion and you want to discuss it, pro, con, whatever, that's the purpose of a council meeting. Therefore, I think it's highly appropriate for someone to second a motion, even if the motion may sound on face value, odd or confrontational or whatever. So that's what I wanted to say with that.
I accept that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm taking the floor. I might have missed a key word in my phrase, but that was to illustrate that your point of nitpicking against the qualifications of the attorneys was similar to me saying about other members that their election isn't. And I thought, when I said that, I finished with, I believe you are all equals. I don't believe any of that stuff. So I inartfully, again, attempted to make my point. So for that, I sincerely apologize. I just want to, for my first point, want to say that I will say some things that are incorrect or wrong or whatever, only because I believe that people, especially those who don't agree with me, deserve for me to at least say what I'm thinking so they get that. And that just seems like a fair thing to do.
Okay, and I appreciate you making that apology to the board members. I'm sorry Mrs. Rich isn't here to hear that, and and I know you can't call her up to do that personally, so on account of our sunshine laws. But anyway, that'll be conveyed to her, and with that apology, and I'm going to accept that apology on behalf of the council, and for those words, and I agree with Mr. Olson, and on the points that we've gone through some trying times here as a council. We've learned, we come through, we've been elected as a council here. All of us have been elected in one fashion or another, and and we all deserve to be here and have our opinions heard and have everything that we want to discuss out in the open. And unfortunately, again, with the Florida Sunshine Laws the way we are, the only way you get the chance to talk to each other and express any feelings towards each other is here at our council meetings. And I want this council to watch the words that they say, try to weigh them a little bit before some of the words come out if we can. I know sometimes they come out, and we always feel bad for the words that we say, but and we need to get through I think, a healing process, not only with the council, but with the city, and I think we're going to get there, and but we all have a voice here, and we should express it, but we gotta watch, I think, how we express our voices and keep it respectful. And if we can't do that, we're never going to get anywhere. So let's have a vote.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Motion was made by Councilmember Slaby to select the Stenstrom firm as city attorney. And then he amended his motion, and I have the number listed on my notes, but I do not have the wording.
It was to, and to have the city attorney review the instrument before signature.
Okay, I wasn't sure the exact wording. Okay, Mr. Slaby?
Yes.
Ms. Tillett?
Yes.
Mr. Rolfson?
No.
Ms. Rich? Not here. Mr. Creel?
Although the Shepherd firm was my first choice, I'm going to vote yes because I think that's what the majority of council wants to do, and I think we had the process was what I wanted to do, so I'll vote yes.
Mr. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Jerome?
Yes.
I move to adjourn. I'm saying that because it's 1 minute to midnight.
Okay, so we still got in today, officially there? Okay, good. Thank you all.